Hi everyone, welcome to part 2. Okay, Aronian has just played rook a c1. Radjabov continued with the b takes c4, and after bishop takes c4, the engines again said that it didn't like Aronian's choice, but he has a very strong human idea to utilize here. He's sacking his e4 pawn here, and we'll see what he's up to in a moment, but first I wanted to explore the alternative queen takes c4, and this creates a pin on the d5 knight, but it's fairly academic because best play continues for black with bishop takes d5, e takes d5, knight b4, and again black can claim equality here. So it's interesting to see why alternative lines are not selected by grandmasters even though the computer prefers them. After bishop takes c4, and Radjabov also doesn't choose the engine line, which is surprising because in this instance it involves winning material, the line that Radjabov chose, which usually engines go for. So he played knight takes e4, snapping up the pawn immediately, although it may have been sounder to play rook a b8 first, attacking the queen, and this prevents queen b7, which Aronian played in the game, and this position favors black tactically, and he's definitely equal here. Radjabov presumably omitted it because he didn't want Aronian to hold on to the pawn, because he can play queen c2 now, and this is just holding everything together, b2 and e4. But black is very active. Best play continues knight takes d5 and bishop takes d5. If instead e takes d5, white is not now winning a piece because he can play rook takes b2. Sorry, black can play rook takes b2 here, and the queen has to move on to this diagonal now, and bishop f5 can come next. If queen d1, then rook d8, and spin isn't going to win a piece. So bishop takes d5 is better, and after rook takes b2, queen takes c5 can be played as white wins the pawn back, and it's objectively equal after queen takes c5, rook takes c5 and knight d4. Okay, so back to the game. Radjabov played knight takes e4. So this allows the queen penetration to b7 and threatens immediately queen takes c6, and white definitely has good compensation for the pawn here. e7 is dropping sooner or later anyway, so it's really only a temporary pawn sacrifice. So rook a c8 to defend the knight, and now bishop takes e7 is possible because the knight is also attacking e7, and as before there's just an amazing amount of tension on the board here. There's not so many pawns, it's all piece play. It's a very nice aesthetic position, and Radjabov now elected for a risky line with bishop takes d5. The engines preferred rook f e8, threatening bishop takes d5 and knight takes e7. Best play continues rook f e1, attacking this knight in turn. So bishop takes d5, bishop takes d5, knight takes e7, and white can play rook takes e4 with a lot of simplification to follow and an equal game. After knight takes d5, rook takes e8, rook takes e8, and queen takes d5. Radjabov's choice ostensibly gives up the exchange after bishop takes d5, because now bishop takes f8, and black's response is forced if he wants to stay in the game, as this move removes the only defender of the c8 rook, and so there's the twin threats of queen takes c8 now, and also bishop takes d5 followed up with queen takes c6. So this means that black is forced to play rook b8 here. Anything else loses immediately because he's simply down the exchange for no compensation. For example, if he plays rook c7, now queen b3 supports the bishop, creates a threat of bishop takes d5, so bishop takes c4, rook takes c4, knight d4, knight takes d4, knight d2 is best play. Now queen b8 forces bishop takes f8. Now knight b3 it's a tricky line, but the essential truth behind it is that white remains the exchange ahead, and the only way for black to avoid this is by playing rook b8 now. And Aronian in turn finds the strongest continuation here with queen takes b8, and this is where the game gets very interesting. Radjabov of course answered knight takes b8, and after bishop takes d5, king takes f8, bishop takes e4, the smoke has cleared and we have a nicely imbalanced game with opposite colored bishops and two rooks against a queen. Aronian seems to go into such imbalances a lot more often than other grandmasters. He had a great win against Nakamura recently with a similar imbalance, and it's something that I really like about him, as it's a gutsy choice and leads to great games. White has the slightly better pawn structure here and the smallest of edges overall. So Radjabov continued with knight d7, and this is the best moves, protects c5 and creates a threat of queen takes a2. If black rushes to win that pawn, he hands white an even bigger advantage. For example, queen takes a2, now rook takes c5, and white is doing very well here. His best move, black's best move now is queen e6. If he gets greedy with queen takes b2, then rook b1 supported by the bishop is embarrassing. That's knight on b8 is going to be lost unless black wants to give up the queen, when of course he will be lost anyway. So queen e6 is the right move. Now bishop b7, this the bishop was attacked by the queen, and this saves the bishop and also creates the threat of rook c8 check, and after the king moves on to the e file, rook e1 supported by the knight to win the queen, and also creates threat of rook c8, simply winning the knight on b8. The best move for black is bishop h6 to give his king some breathing room. So now will come rook c8 check, king g7, and rook e1 is best. If instead rook takes b8, black can just hold the balance with queen b6 pinning the bishop. So rook e1, now queen d6, and white's advantage is growing and should be winning before long. Okay, so we'll head back to the game now anyway. So knight d7 from Radjabov, and now b3, which was a small inaccuracy from Aronian. This saves the b pawn from the bishop but drops the a pawn to the queen, and this allows black equality once more. Stronger was rook f d1 attacking the knights and allowing bishop takes b2, because now comes rook b1 attacking the bishop, and best move is knight f6, saving the knight and attacking the bishop here on e4. And now white can play bishop takes g6 because the b2 bishop is hanging. Queen takes a2 defends it, and now white can play bishop d3, and he's dropped a pawn, but these black pawns are now shattered and really easy targets to prey on, and white definitely stands better here. Okay, black has two queenside passers, but they do not pose a serious threat, and black must first untangle his queen and bishop, whilst white will retain ongoing pressure on the black position. So b3 anyway is what Aronian played. Okay, that's the end of part 2.